If you ever find yourself in a situation where you're standing in your own living room, holding an electric screwdriver in one hand and your dignity in the other, wondering how you got there, well, congratulations. You might be me. It all started with the ceiling fan. Not exactly the most thrilling way for a man's life to unravel, but let's be honest, most disasters don't come announced with fireworks and a marching band. They sneak in through the back door while you're busy tightening a loose screw. So there I was, standing on a wobbly chair, trying to fix the stupid fan that Evelyn had been complaining about for weeks. "It makes a noise," she'd said, "like a rattlesnake is trapped inside." So naturally, instead of calling a professional like a sane person, I decided to handle it myself. Because that's what husbands do. We attempt home repairs with a level of skill that could generously be described as reckless confidence. I unscrewed the cover, reached up and found a piece of paper, folded, tucked inside the fan like it was some kind of secret compartment. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never once in my life thought, hey, let me store an important document in the guts of a ceiling fan. And yet, here it was. Curious, I climbed down, unfolded the paper, and read the first line. Then I read it again. Then, for good measure, I took a deep breath and read it a third time, just to make sure I hadn't suffered a minor head injury from standing on that chair too long. Because what I was holding in my hands was the kind of thing that changes everything. And I had no idea just how deep this rabbit hole was about to go. I sat down on the couch, the paper still in my hands, half expecting it to self-destruct like some secret agent memo. It didn't, which meant I had to actually process what I was reading. At first glance, it looked like a list. Neatly written, bullet points, no extra fluff. But the kind of list that makes your left eye twitch the longer you stare at it. April 14th, 7:30 p.m. June 2nd, 9:15 a.m. July 19th, 6:45 p.m. September 8th, 1:20 p.m. And so on. No titles, no descriptions, no explanations, just dates and times. Now, I'd like to think of myself as a fairly rational guy. I don't jump to conclusions, and I don't panic. So I did the only logical thing. I spent the next 20 minutes spiraling into a full-blown conspiracy theory, convinced that my wife was either running a secret underground poker club, involved in a shady government experiment, using our house as a front for something that would eventually make it onto a documentary with the words "shocking discovery" in the title. None of these seemed likely, but at that point, they were still preferable to the other, more obvious possibility. I read through the list again. The dates weren't random. I recognized one immediately, our anniversary. That was a fun day. We'd gone out, she'd smiled a lot, and apparently, at some point between the fancy restaurant and us getting home, she had also jotted down a very specific timestamp for reasons unknown to me. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my calendar. June 2nd? That was the day her business trip got extended. September 8th? That was the time she texted me "love you. Busy, talk later." I don't know if you've ever experienced the sensation of your stomach slowly dissolving while your brain plays catch up, but it's about as enjoyable as it sounds. Now, normal people in this situation might have just asked their spouse about it. But no, not me. That would have been too easy. Instead, I did what any self-respecting man would do. I decided to solve this puzzle with the level of effort usually reserved for high-stakes espionage. So I walked straight to the bedroom, opened Evelyn's nightstand drawer, and started digging. Not because I thought she'd left a written confession in there, but because I had to do something other than sit around waiting for my head to explode. At first, it was all standard wife stuff. A notebook, some old receipts, a charger for a device that I'm 90% sure we don't even own. Then, underneath all of it, I found another piece of paper. Unlike the first, this one was not neatly written. It was crumpled, like it had been shoved in there quickly. I unfolded it, expecting, well, I don't know what I was expecting, but it definitely wasn't this. A list. Again. But this time, there were names. April 14th, Brian. June 2nd, Alex. July 19th, Mark. September 8th, Jason. And suddenly, I had a very good idea of what this was. There's a moment when you realize that everything you thought was true has been replaced by something so absurd that your brain just refuses to process it. I stared at the paper, waiting for my own mind to reject what I was seeing. But nope, there it was. In writing. I sat down on the bed and did something I hadn't done in years. I laughed. Not the kind of laugh you let out when something's actually funny. No, this was the kind of laugh that happens when the universe decides to slap you in the face with something so ridiculous that the only response is hysterical disbelief. I mean, come on. A handwritten schedule? Who does that? Who sits down and plans out their infidelity like it's a dentist appointment? And the names. Jason? Really? She couldn't have at least gone for something less cliché? I wanted to be angry. I really did. But at that moment, I was too busy being impressed by the sheer stupidity of it all. Eventually, I managed to stop laughing, mostly because my face was starting to hurt. I had two choices. Sit here, pretend I hadn't found this, and carry on. Get some actual answers. I wasn't exactly in the mood to play moron. I walked out of the bedroom and straight into the hallway, where Evelyn had this big decorative board hanging on the wall. One of those artsy ones where you're supposed to write inspirational quotes or cute reminders in fancy chalk. It currently said, "Love is built on trust." I picked up the chalk, erased the message, and replaced it with, "Evelyn, we need to talk. Bring a calendar." Then I sat on the couch, crossed my arms, and waited. Evelyn walked through the front door, tossing her keys onto the table like she hadn't just walked into a crime scene. Her usual after-work routine was as predictable as the sun rising. Shoes off, dramatic sigh about her exhausting day, then straight to her phone to scroll through whatever urgent nonsense kept her so busy lately. Today, however, I had adjusted the programming. She barely made it 2 steps inside before her eyes landed on the message I had so thoughtfully prepared for her. She froze, staring at the chalkboard like it had personally insulted her. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head, trying to figure out what kind of talk I had in mind. "What's this?" she finally asked, her voice carefully neutral. I gestured to the couch. "Why don't you sit down? We can have a little calendar review session." She didn't move. Her eyes flicked to my hands like she was checking if I was holding a folder of incriminating evidence. I wasn't. It was sitting on the coffee table, neatly placed between us, because I believe in presentation. Evelyn slowly walked over, lowering herself onto the couch with the hesitation of someone defusing a bomb. "Tom, what is this about?" she asked, her voice attempting casual. I picked up the 2 pieces of paper I had discovered and placed them in front of her. "I'd like to go over your scheduling habits." She looked down, blinked, then did that thing where she carefully adjusts her posture like it might help change reality. "Where did you find this?" "Inside the ceiling fan." That threw her off. "What?" "You heard me. I was fixing the fan, and lo and behold, I find the most interesting record-keeping system I've ever seen. Very efficient, I must say. You even wrote down times, Evelyn. That's commitment." She looked at me now, and I mean really looked at me. This was the moment. The crossroads. The point where a person decides if they're going to go full damage control or just throw in the towel and confess. Evelyn, being Evelyn, chose the third option. Outright denial backed by sheer audacity. "This isn't what you think," she said. "Oh? Then what exactly is it? Are these, reminders for your secret double life as a time-traveling historian?" She exhaled sharply. "No, I mean these aren't mine." I tilted my head. "Oh, I see. So someone broke into our house, climbed up into the ceiling, and carefully hid these papers specifically for me to find at a later date? That makes so much more sense." Her jaw tightened. "You're being ridiculous." "Me? Ridiculous? Evelyn, you literally wrote down appointments with other men." "Appointments? Who schedules cheating? Is there a waiting list? Do you send confirmation emails?" She stood up suddenly, pacing. Classic move, create motion to buy time. I let her, arms crossed, waiting for whatever excuse she was about to craft out of thin air. Then she stopped, turned to me, and said, "It's not what you think. It's therapy." I stared at her. "Therapy?" "Yes." She folded her arms, nodding like she had just found the ultimate defense. "Group therapy." My mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. "You wrote down men's names next to each date and time. They were the therapists." "Oh, were they?" Did they specialize in advanced lying techniques for unfaithful wives? She pressed her lips together, shifting gears again. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd react like this. Like a rational person who can read? She scoffed. You always do this. You jump to conclusions and act like a detective instead of just trusting me. I let out a short laugh, shaking my head. Trust? Evelyn, I found a coordinated timeline of your extracurricular activities inside a household appliance. You hid it. That's not trust. That's what criminals do when they smuggle contraband. She sighed dramatically, rubbing her temples like I was the unreasonable one. Fine. You want the truth? Oh, finally. I was starting to think I'd have to call in a forensic team. She hesitated. Then, as if deciding to just bulldoze through the conversation, she said, It's a social experiment. I blinked. A what? A social experiment. I was doing research. Research? On what? How to destroy a marriage in the most stupid way possible. I was reading a book about human behavior and deception, she said quickly. I wanted to test if keeping a secret, even one that wasn't real, would affect the way I acted around you. It was psychological. I stared at her, processing the sheer volume of nonsense pouring out of her mouth. So, just to clarify, you're saying you pretended to cheat as an experiment. That's your final answer? Yes. She crossed her arms. I picked up the paper and pointed at a name. Then why do you have Jason written down here? He was part of the study. Oh, wow, how fascinating. And where exactly was this study conducted? She hesitated. I nodded. That's what I thought. The silence between us stretched. She knew she had nothing. I knew she had nothing. But still, she refused to budge. I sighed, sitting back. Evelyn, just admit it. You cheated, and you were so confident in your organizational skills that you actually wrote it down. Like some kind of scheduling mastermind. Her hands clenched into fists. I am not admitting to something that isn't true. I rubbed my temples. All right. You want to stick to this nonsense story? Fine. I'm going to go ahead and book my own therapy session, but mine is called a lawyer. Her eyes widened. You're overreacting. Oh, am I? You've been sneaking around, lying and fabricating the worst excuses I've ever heard in my life, and I'm the problem? What's next? Are you going to tell me you were doing volunteer work at a Husbands Who Don't Know club? She exhaled, shaking her head. You're being dramatic. I stood up. And you're being ridiculous. So I'll make this easy. Either you tell me the truth right now, or I start making some appointments of my own. But mine won't be in a ceiling fan. She glared at me, jaw tight, but still said nothing. I nodded, grabbing my keys. All right. You let me know when you're ready to talk like an actual person instead of an amateur con artist. And with that, I walked out the door. Evelyn always thought she was the smartest person in the room. I used to find it amusing, the way she'd explain things I already knew, as if she were unveiling some ancient wisdom. The way she'd sigh when I didn't immediately agree with her, like I was a slow student in her imaginary classroom. The way she could spin any situation in her favor with enough confidence to make a cult leader jealous. Well, congratulations, Evelyn. You outsmarted yourself this time. I sat in my car for about 5 minutes after walking out, letting my brain go through the 7 stages of what the hell just happened before landing on one conclusion. I wasn't about to let her win. No yelling, no pleading, no emotional speeches about trust and betrayal. I was going to handle this the way Evelyn handled everything, with a carefully calculated strategy designed for maximum effect. Step 1. Gather intelligence. I wasn't about to go on some cliché rampage, breaking things and making a scene. No, I needed details. Hard facts. Evelyn had already shown she was willing to lie with the enthusiasm of a politician during election season. So I needed something she couldn't talk her way out of. Now, I could have hired a private investigator. That's the classic move, right? But why waste money when I had a far better, more satisfying option? I grabbed my phone and texted Paul. Paul was Evelyn's coworker. More importantly, Paul was a guy who couldn't keep a secret if his life depended on it. The man had the discretion of a malfunctioning fire alarm. If Evelyn had so much as mentioned anything shady at work, Paul would have been the one to spill it, probably by accident, in the middle of one of his over-explained stories about office politics. Me. Hey man, you busy? Need a quick chat. Paul. Yo. What's up? Me. Just wondering. Evelyn's been super stressed lately. Any drama at work? Weird behavior? Late nights? Anything I should know? Paul. Oh dude. You don't know? Bingo. Me. Know what? Paul. Bro. Okay. You didn't hear this from me, but there's been talk. Like, a lot of talk. Paul. She's been real close with Alex. Like, weirdly close. Paul. People were joking about it, but I didn't think it was serious. You know how office gossip is. Paul. Wait, why are you asking? Me. Just curious. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Paul. Oh. Oh no. Paul. Dude. Paul. Did something happen? I left him on read. Step 2. Leverage social optics. Evelyn cared about appearances more than anything. She curated her image with the precision of a surgeon. She wasn't just cheating. She was doing it while maintaining the performance of happily married, successful woman for everyone around her, which meant the best way to hit her where it hurt wasn't through some dramatic confrontation. No, I needed to adjust that carefully crafted image. So I took a page from her own playbook and scheduled something. A dinner. Not with Evelyn. Not even with friends. No, this needed to be public. Family dinner. Evelyn's parents were old school. They loved me, mostly because I was the reliable, no-nonsense guy who put up with their daughter's intense personality. That's what they called it when she was being unbearable. So I texted them. Me, hey. Been too long. Wanna do dinner this weekend? My treat. Her mom. Oh, Tom. That sounds lovely. Evelyn will be thrilled. She was just saying how busy she's been. Me, yeah, we need to catch up. I'll set something up and let you know. Perfect. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why the family dinner? Simple. Evelyn had been controlling the narrative for who knows how long. If she was cheating, she had already started building an explanation for why our marriage would suddenly fall apart when I found out. I wasn't going to give her that chance. Step 3. Sabotage her support network. Evelyn's biggest strength was her ability to manipulate situations before they became a problem. But here's the thing. Manipulation only works when you're the one controlling the flow of information. So I made sure I got there first. I casually started texting mutual friends, dropping hints that things were a little weird at home, but playing it vague. Just enough to plant the seed that if Evelyn started spinning some dramatic Tom is crazy and paranoid story later, they'd already have doubts. The best part? People love gossip. The moment one person knows something, they tell 3 others. Evelyn had built her reputation on being composed and in control. The second people suspected trouble in paradise, they'd be watching her instead of blindly believing her. By the time Evelyn realized what was happening, the people she relied on to back up her version of reality would already be questioning it. Step 4. Turn the tables. I went home that night calm. Too calm. Evelyn was sitting on the couch, pretending to be absorbed in her phone, probably waiting to see if I was going to explode. I didn't. Instead, I sat down across from her and smiled. Just scheduled dinner with your parents, I said casually. Figured it'd be nice to catch up. Her head snapped up. What? Yeah, this weekend. Should be fun. I could see the calculations happening behind her eyes. Evelyn hated surprises. She liked to plan conversations in advance, especially ones where she needed to come out looking like the victim. This was not part of her plan. You scheduled dinner, she repeated slowly. Yep. She hesitated. Tom, I really don't think. Oh, and Paul says hi. I said it casually, like it was just an afterthought. Her face froze. I leaned back, stretching like I didn't have a care in the world. Funny guy, Paul. Real talkative. I watched as she tried to keep her expression neutral, but there it was, the flicker of panic. And that's when I knew I had her. Evelyn always played chess while I was playing checkers. But today, I flipped the whole board over. Evelyn sat there, completely still, the way someone does when they're trying to calculate how badly they've just screwed up. She was waiting for me to say something else, maybe yell, maybe demand answers. But no, I wasn't going to make this easy for her. That's not how this game was going to be played. I leaned back in my chair, stretching my arms like I didn't have a single worry in the world. So, you excited for dinner? She blinked. Tom, I don't think it's a good idea. Why's that? I asked, tilting my head in the most innocent way possible. She hesitated. I've been really busy with work. You know that. I don't have the energy for a big family dinner right now. That was cute. That was really cute. The classic I'm too exhausted to be held accountable for anything routine. I should have expected that one. Yeah, that's what I figured, I said, nodding thoughtfully. Good thing I already told your parents you'd be there. You know how your mom gets when people cancel on her last minute. She exhaled sharply through her nose. I could tell she wanted to argue, to throw out some excuse, but she also knew that backing out now would only make her look suspicious. And that was exactly the point. So instead, she forced a smile. Fine. We'll go. Great. I smiled back. She watched me carefully, still unsure of what was happening, but I wasn't about to give her anything. Not yet. The next few days were a masterpiece of psychological warfare. Evelyn was clearly on edge, expecting some sort of confrontation, but I kept everything completely normal. I kissed her goodbye in the morning. I asked about her day. I even offered to help her with the dishes like I was the picture of a supportive husband. And that, more than anything, was what made her nervous. By the time Saturday rolled around, she was as tense as a contestant in a game show where the grand prize was not getting exposed for cheating in front of your parents. We arrived at the restaurant right on time, and I have to say, Evelyn deserved some credit. She pulled it together well, smiling, laughing, acting like everything was perfectly fine. But I wasn't worried. The best part of revenge is the waiting. Her mom was halfway through telling a story about their neighbor's horrible new lawn decorations when I decided to start laying the groundwork. You know, Evelyn's been working really hard lately, I said, my voice completely casual. Her dad nodded. Oh yeah? Big projects at work? Evelyn smiled, but I could see the stiffness behind it. Yeah, it's been a little crazy. I nodded along. Yeah, long hours. So many nights working late. Her mom frowned slightly. That's odd. Every time I call, she always sounds like she's at home. There it was. The first crack. Evelyn laughed, but it was just a little too quick. Well, I don't work late every night. I acted like I hadn't noticed her sudden need to clarify. Of course. But you know what's funny? I took a sip of my drink, letting the pause stretch just long enough. Paul was saying the other day how you and Alex have been practically glued together at the office. Her fork actually clattered against her plate. Her dad, being the oblivious dad that he was, just chuckled. Alex? That your boss? No, I said, shaking my head. Just a colleague. Real close colleague, apparently. Evelyn shot me a look so sharp it could have cut glass. Tom. What? I said, all innocent confusion. I just thought it was interesting. I mean, Paul made it sound like you two were practically inseparable. Like a little work team. Her mom's eyebrows lifted slightly. That's funny. I don't think I've ever heard you mention an Alex before. Evelyn's jaw was tight. It's not a big deal. Oh, of course not, I agreed. Just funny how people notice these things, you know? And then, before she could stop me, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the folded piece of paper. Evelyn actually turned pale. What's that? Her dad asked, squinting. Oh, just some notes I found lying around, I said, unfolding it carefully. See? Dates, times, and, oh look, names. Evelyn actually kicked me under the table. Hard. But I didn't react. Her mom, however, was now paying very close attention. What are those for? I made a show of looking puzzled. That's what I was wondering. It was just lying around the house. It almost looks like, I tapped my chin, a schedule. But I can't for the life of me figure out what for. I could feel Evelyn's rage radiating off of her like a nuclear reactor about to explode. She knew she couldn't lose her temper in front of her parents, and that's what made this so perfect. Her dad, still oblivious, just chuckled. Probably just some work thing, huh? Evelyn shot me a glare so deadly, it should have come with a warning label. Yes, she said through gritted teeth. Just a work thing. Ah, I nodded, folding the paper back up. Well, that's a relief. I was worried it might be something else. Her mom's eyes narrowed slightly. What else would it be? Evelyn grabbed her drink and took a very long sip, probably trying to resist the urge to throw it in my face. Nothing, she said quickly. Nothing, I echoed, smiling. Absolutely nothing at all. For the rest of the dinner, Evelyn was silent. Her parents were polite, but I could tell her mom was watching her carefully, clearly wondering if something was off. And that's what I wanted, because Evelyn hated questions. By the time we got home, she was practically vibrating with anger. The second we walked through the door, she whirled on me. What the hell was that? I shrugged, hanging up my coat. Dinner. Don't play moron with me, Tom. You. Relax, Evelyn, I said, turning to face her. It was just a social experiment. Her eyes widened. What? I smirked. You know, a little research on human behavior and deception. I crossed my arms. Figured I'd see what happens when I keep secrets and drop unexpected information in public. It's psychological. Her mouth actually opened and closed. You're insane, she finally said. I grinned. You'd know, wouldn't you? And with that, I walked past her, straight to the bedroom, leaving her standing there, completely and utterly outplayed. Evelyn didn't speak to me for 2 days. It was glorious. I didn't get the usual fake morning kisses, no passive-aggressive, hope you have a good day, as she scrolled through her phone. No random commentary about whatever pointless office drama she usually forced me to care about. Nothing. Just silence. It was the best 2 days of my life. Of course, I knew it wouldn't last. Evelyn didn't believe in letting things go. No, she was strategizing, figuring out how to spin things back in her favor. Because that's what she did. Twist reality until she came out looking like the victim. Sure enough, on the 3rd day, she finally made her move. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, enjoying the peace and quiet, when she waltzed into the living room and dropped herself onto the armrest next to me. Not next to me on the couch, on the armrest. A subtle little power move. I ignored her. She sighed dramatically. Tom. I kept scrolling. Tom. I yawned. She shifted, planting her feet on the floor like she was settling in for a long discussion I had absolutely no interest in having. We need to talk. No, you need to talk, I corrected. I'm perfectly happy sitting here in blissful ignorance. She clenched her jaw. This isn't funny. Then why am I laughing? Her eyes narrowed. Are you seriously just going to be childish about this? I glanced up at her. Oh, you mean how I should be taking things seriously? Like, I don't know, a relationship experiment? She hated that. I could see it in the way she gripped the couch, like she was debating whether to flip it over just to get the upper hand. But she didn't snap. No, Evelyn was a professional at self-control when she needed to be. Fine, she said, forcing her voice into something calm and reasonable. I just want to know where we stand. Oh, that's easy, I said. We stand right here, where you cheated and then lied about it like a contestant on a game show trying to win $1 million. She inhaled sharply through her nose. I already told you. Yeah. I waved her off. The calendar, the experiment, the therapy, the secret government project you forgot to mention. I've heard it all. I set my phone down and finally turned to her. But you know what's funny, Evelyn? Her jaw tightened. What? You never apologized. That threw her. She blinked. What? Not once, I said, leaning forward. Not even as a fake tactic. You lied. You got caught. You made up more lies. And not once did you think, hey, maybe I should at least pretend to be sorry. She scoffed. You wanted an apology? For what? A misunderstanding? I let out a short laugh. Wow. You actually believe your own nonsense, don't you? She stood up abruptly, arms crossed. You're acting like I burned the house down. Nothing happened. Oh, really? Nothing happened? I picked up my phone and tapped a few times. Then I turned the screen toward her. It was a screenshot of her schedule, the very one I had texted to her mother yesterday. Evelyn's entire body stiffened. You didn't. Oh, I absolutely did, I said cheerfully. You see, I thought it was so strange that you were keeping such a detailed list, so I figured, hey, maybe your mom can help solve the mystery. Her face went white. You told my mother? I shrugged. You know how much she loves puzzles. I figured she'd get a kick out of it. She stared at me like she was trying to physically vaporize me with her mind. "You're a horrible person," she whispered. I grinned. "So are you, Evelyn. But I'm better at it." She stormed out of the room, and about 5 seconds later, I heard her phone ringing. Probably her mother demanding answers. Now, I could have stopped there. I had already dismantled her little perfect world. But the problem with Evelyn? She didn't know when to quit. And that's why I had one last move left to play. I walked into the bedroom, grabbed my laptop, and opened my email. A few days ago, I had done something I knew would absolutely push her over the edge. Something subtle, yet devastating. I had reached out to a divorce lawyer. But not just any lawyer. A lawyer who specializes in aggressive, no-mercy cases. I had already gathered proof. Not just the schedule, messages, receipts, screenshots. Because Evelyn had underestimated me. She thought I would react emotionally. She thought I would shout, cry, beg, fight. But I wasn't doing any of that. I was ending it. I hit send on the final email, confirming our consultation for Monday. Then, I leaned back in my chair, stretched, and waited for the fireworks. Evelyn was about to lose everything. Evelyn spent the next few days spiraling. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. She was too busy putting out the fires I had so kindly started. First, there was her mother, who had several questions about the work calendar I sent her. Then, there were the whispers at her office, because Paul, predictably, couldn't keep his mouth shut. And finally, the cherry on top. She found the divorce papers sitting neatly on the kitchen counter, right next to her perfectly scheduled disaster of a life. She tried everything. Denial, anger, bargaining. She tried flipping it on me, acting like I was being irrational. Then she tried sweet-talking, acting like we could work through this. But I wasn't playing that game. I had already won. The day she moved out, she didn't even look at me, just grabbed her things, shoved them into suitcases, and left. No grand farewell, no last attempt at saving face. Just silence. And that, more than anything, told me she finally understood. She had lost. A month later, the divorce was finalized. Clean, simple, and very much in my favor, thanks to my delightful collection of evidence. She tried to fight it, of course, but hard to argue when your own notes betray you. And me? Well, let's just say I've never slept better. Thanks for watching. Rate the story in the comments. Subscribe to the channel,